Hi, I'm Julie.
And I'm Caleb. Welcome to Nursing You, the podcast where we redefine nursing in today's healthcare landscape. Join Julie and I as we step outside the box on an unconventional healing journey.
Together, we're diving deep into the heart of nursing, exploring the intricate relationships between caregivers and patients with sincerity and depth.
Our mission is to create an open and collaborative experience where learning is expansive and fun.
From the psychological impacts of nursing to the larger implications on the healthcare system, we're sparking conversation that lead to healing and innovation.
We have serious experience and we won't pull our punches, but we'll also weave in some humor along the way because we all know laughter is often the best medicine.
It is, and we won't shy away from any topic, taboo or not. From violence and drugs to family and love, we're tackling it all.
Our nursing knowledge is our base, but we'll be bringing insights from philosophy, religion, science, and art to deepen our understanding of the human experience.
So whether you're a nurse, a healthcare professional, or just someone curious about the world of caregiving, this podcast is for you.
One last thing, a quick disclaimer before we dive in. While we're both registered nurses, nothing we discuss here should be taken as medical advice. Always consult with your physician or qualified healthcare provider for any medical concerns you may have. The views expressed here are our own and don't necessarily reflect those of our employers or licensing bodies.
So let's get started on this journey together. Welcome to Nursing You, where every conversation leads to a healthier world.
Back.
Here we are. Again. It does get easier every time.
Yeah.
Technology's clicking.
It's starting to work.
It is. It was really giving us hell there for a little bit.
It was
really clicking now, so that's great. Great momentum.
Yeah.
And the podcast came out this past Sunday, so I don't know when this one will come out, but it is fun.
It's 11, so that's like 4.
I know, like sometime in September.
Like almost 2 months from now.
Yeah.
Is when that one would come out. Or this one.
Right. So this will be coming out after it's been out for 2 months. So it's interesting. Time delay a little bit, but it seems to be going good. People are listening to it. They're listening to it. So that's great.
Yeah, surprisingly. I mean, I'm surprised, not surprised. I mean,
surprised, not surprised.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, clearly everybody wants to listen to this. Who would not want to listen to it? So hopefully they'll take their whole Saturday and listen to all of them.
All of them, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you never know. You could be driving. You could be going to the grocery store. You could have earbuds in. You could, You could be in your backyard, gardening, listening. Yeah. Headphones. It'd be great. That's what I do. Anyways. So today we're going to one of the last episodes before we had the guest, we talked about kind of the mess that had been made for both of us, just with where we kind of ended. It just felt like a mess. I know for me, it just felt like when I left the hospital, everything was a mess. Nothing made sense. Nothing was making sense to us. Just with where we kind of ended, it just felt like a mess. I know for me, it just felt like when I left the hospital, everything was a mess. Nothing made sense. Nothing was making sense to me. Why I was doing it. Why were you keep coming back? Why don't you love it anymore? Why are you so angry? It just felt like a mess. And so we were talking, and I think we need to talk about how to start cleaning up the mess. Whatever your mess looks like, how to start doing that. And what were we talking about? And you were like, I think I'll say that. When you were talking about one of the things that you did to kind of clean up your mess. Because we were talking about how we feel about the healthcare system and how we feel like it was kind of abusive parent. Mm-hmm. And because we both grew up in it, you're young when you get most people, you're young when you're a nurse, when you begin.
Grow legs.
Yeah, you do got to grow legs. Yeah. And it just sometimes feels like, I know when I left, I was like, fuck you, I'm never coming back. Mm-hmm. And maybe you were similar. So you were saying,
Well, what I was leading with in our kind of pre-conference, our pre-conversation.
Yeah, pre-conference. Yeah. Yeah.
Was just that I left the podcast with Brandy feeling like I was trying to justify a system that is broken, and that was not. I spent a lot of time reflecting on the position that I was taking. I was kind of, I felt like it was going to a place that was more negative than constructive. I'm not really interested in just bashing and focusing. I don't want to focus on negative, on negativity. And because that is one of the tools that I've used to exit, really exit the darkness of the world that I created for myself, which there is an element of extreme accountability that you have to adopt in picking your life back up. That doesn't mean that all of the darkness was created by you or your choices, but to get out of that darkness, there is an element of having to confront yourself. And take extreme accountability for yourself and for the choices that you're making, and so one of the tools that I've used to exit that darkness, that brought light into that darkness, was that choosing to see the positive in others. And so even with people that have hurt me remarkably deep, I found the good things. In fact, one of the spiritual leaders that I'd worked with years and years and years ago, at the very beginning, he had me sit down and write a prayer for my dad, about a prayer between me and God about my dad. And it was entirely mine. I don't know that I ever even shared it with him. It was mine. But what it did was it allowed me to speak words that were good about my dad over and over and over and over, like months, a year. I don't know. I don't remember. I couldn't give you an exact timeline of how many times I recited that prayer, but I recited it enough times that I began to see the positive in my father, even though I had deep wounds from him. And by engaging in that activity, it really restored that relationship tremendously. So, he's not perfect. No, he's still, we don't agree on everything. We don't, there's a lot of things that we don't agree on, but I think that he chose the same thing, whether he did it in an active form or otherwise, or maybe he didn't do anything. Maybe it was that I changed myself, and then that gave him something to connect to.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Well, and you're viewing him in a different light. So you've changed, being positive, speaking positive, in the active sense of doing, it changes the energy, it changes the vibration, and you start attracting different vibrations from your father. And so whether or not he did anything, you changed it. Changed it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So and that's really kind of one of the root, foundational elements of why I was trying to push back. I'm not trying to justify the brokenness of this system. I'm not trying to get to convince anybody to stay in the system that's so broken. We've said this before. We want everyone to take accountability for their own mental health, for their own selves. We are not trying to take responsibility for anybody. We're just trying to have the conversation and share what we have done to put ourselves back together.
Yeah.
So that was really the core of it, but it really prompted me to really start thinking about all of the tools that I have amassed in this process, so that, you know, in this putting it back together pod, we can hand over some really beautiful tools to people that are, you know, just right there. It's just low laying fruit. I mean, it's simple stuff, but actually doing it will change your life.
Yeah.
It will change your life. It's
Yeah.
incredible.
Literally.
Yeah.
And I think that as nurses, because I think often, why did it take me so long? You know, I mean, even after I quit drinking, I was still nursing. I was still doing all of that. I was still allowing a lot of things to keep me ill and dark. But I think that nurses, especially critical care, you push Neo, instant change.
Yeah.
Instant.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I always wanted instant gratification from something.
Yes.
So if I'm going to take the time and I'm going to do something, I want to see it. And a lot of the tools and what I've realized is they seem almost silly. They seem useless. And like, why? You know, really?
Because it's about consciousness.
Right.
It really is.
It is. And so I think if nurses can see that, you know, like if you're telling your patient, you're not going to walk after surgery the very first day. So you're going to get up a little bit and you're going to stand, or you're going to sit at the bedside. Then you're going to stand. And then you're going to like walk to the sink. And then you might walk around the room. And then you might walk in the hall. You know, it's just this little bit after little bit. And as you continue to do the things, even though it hurts, even though it's strenuous, or it may make you cry, or it might make you be so tired after, all of the things, it's going to get you to a different place. And I don't know how many times you can hear or say, if you don't change anything, nothing will change. And I just must have been very hard-headed, because I just couldn't take the step. I couldn't do it till I had to. I mean, I was so broken. And
what is that?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's just like a self-sabotaging, kind of an ego-driven, and an ego, I just mean like front mind, intellectual mind, rather than allowing, kind of letting go of some of the control and just being open to some of the things. But once you do, God, I mean, you could feel however you want to feel. Like in a moment, if I'm so pissed, I don't even really get too pissed anymore. Like triggered.
So this is another one of the tools, one of the mental tools to elevate yourself out of consciousness. All emotions eventually fade. They never stay. They never stay.
No.
You will store anger and negativity. You will, if you don't process it, it will stick to you somehow. But the emotions of it, they always fade.
Yeah, always.
Always.
But we're so fearful to feel what it is, or to name what it is, or to feel where it is in your body, because it's too painful when you're doing something that is so damaging to you. Like staying in a situation, staying somewhere with someone, doing something that you know is damaging to the soul. You feel very out of sorts. You know, you might not be able to put your finger on it, but you know. And you have to, in some ways, disassociate from your physical body so that you can continue.
So I think what I hear you saying, taking it back to the, what did you say? Neosynaphrine?
Yeah. When you push something, you get immediate.
It's immediate. I mean, it's like concrete.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna work.
Yeah.
It's absolute.
Yeah, absolute. Yes, absolute.
It's gonna work.
Yeah.
And so I think that is one of the like constraints that attaches to our Western mind, that we think in such concrete and absolute terms.
Mm-hmm.
And so much of what we experience is not concrete. In fact, I was thinking about this yesterday as I was contemplating what I would talk about today. And I remembered, it's in a different context, but I remembered a YouTube video that I watched. It was a doctor. I'll see if I can find it. He was describing consciousness as fluid. And a lot of the terms that we use when we talk about our consciousness, or another way to say it would be our thoughts,
mm-hmm.
is that they're in fluid terms. Like I drifted off into thought, or I drifted off into sleep. These fluid terms. And if you think about, all of our central nervous system is suspended on cerebrospinal fluid. Mm-hmm. So it is literally swimming, which is just such a fascinating way to think about, think about why so many things, I guess, why it makes sense that absolute terms would be a constriction on consciousness. That, it has to be this. That can't float. That doesn't float. That sinks.
Right. Yeah.
Like that falls right to the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
So when you put those two ideas together, it makes sense that when you think of things in absolute concrete terms, it holds you down.
Yeah.
And especially, again, connecting it back to our previous pod where you were talking about how we are wired to remember the negative things. We have been programmed over, millennia to look for the threats.
Yeah.
And it's so difficult to connect to the positive thing. We can't remember the good things that happen to us. And so the only things that we remember are the negative things. Yeah. And that keeps us in this constrained consciousness. And having the fluidity of thought to say, maybe my idea that I'm absolutely right is wrong.
Yeah. It's possibility. Is it possible? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is it possible? Because we think we're so right. I was so right, and couldn't have been more wrong.
Yeah.
And then you find yourself at the bottom, and it's all dark, and you just can't find a way out.
Yeah.
And that was the other thing that we were talking about in our pregame conference.
I like that.
That the people that we're talking to, they aren't necessarily healthy.
Right.
We aren't. Our audience, I hope that people that are healthy will listen to this, but you don't need us.
Right.
If you're healthy, you don't need us. But if you're a nurse that has experienced suffering and death, and just that Groundhog Day, the Groundhog Day of suffering and death, and you're suffering, that's who we're talking to.
Yeah. So how do we tell how to start? I feel like I want to say you have to love yourself. You have to figure out that, because it's like loving yourself as you love a child. So it would be, giving to yourself and finding a way to be happy and have more peace by allowing yourself to do. So it's like you have to give yourself permission first, maybe.
I mean, one of the early steps is kind of, for lack of a better term, discovering your own equanimity, that you're not all good and you're not all bad. Mm-hmm. When you can see yourself in a more, in that more fluid realm, not so black and white, because that's what shame does, is it tells you that you're all bad. Mm-hmm. Like you've just messed everything up. You didn't get your meds on time, or you know, whatever it is, whatever
you didn't say the right thing with the doctor. Yeah. You didn't convey. Now you don't have the right orders, and now you're screwed. Now you have to call them back. You know, you didn't, you know, whatever, you know, or I mean, it could be anything at work and or home, you know,
or all home. Anywhere. All of it. So finding the equanimity within yourself, that you're neither all good or all bad. That's, to me, that was a big starting point, is seeing myself in a more true light. That, because if you only focus on the negative, it's only going to take you down. And so shining that light. So like I'm in my mind, I'm picturing, you know, myself in this very dark place. There's no light. I can't see which direction is up, left, right. Like nothing has any context. And from there, the lights are equanimity of self, and then choosing. And then, because once you get to that place of equanimity of self, then you can push that out, and you push that out. Uh-huh. You can say, this person is neither all good or all bad. Yeah. And from there, then you can make the choice to view them positively. Mm-hmm. And for me, in my journey, it was you know, all of the issues that we talked about with Brandy, all of the brokenness of our system, I very easily could have just said, no, I'm not going to do that. I chose to find, you know, I chose to look for the good. What is the good? The good is that it is I'm a caregiver, and our system that we have today is the system that we have. Yeah. And so, and that not all of the modalities of caring are broken.
Right.
That we still have, like, our system still has good things that it does for people. I witness it almost daily when I'm at work. And so by choosing to engage in the form that I have worked out for myself, that this is how I can provide the gifting that I have, the tool or the muscle of caregiving. This is the system that we have. So if I withdraw that, then the people are suffering. So choosing to participate in the system in the way that I'm comfortable with doing is opening, you know, it's not concrete. It's opening the door for good. So I would say, you know, that was my journey. I guess we're trying to provide the solutions for others, and that's not necessarily my path isn't everyone's path. Right. You don't have to choose to go back into the system if you've separated from it, right. And you don't have to stay in it.
That's right. You don't have to. You can, and some people want to. Some people want it to be better, but I think shifting your mindset is one of the first things that you have to try and do. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it feels like you're forcing it, but we have to start creating new habits, because our habits become bitching about the system, bitching about we don't have enough, talking about there isn't enough, there's not enough staff, that doctor's a dick, you know, this is bullshit, all of it, you know. But we go and we do the things that we know how to do, which is take care of patients well.
Right.
But we've created the dark cloud around it all. But can you make things into something that they're not? Not usually. But that's not what we're trying to do. What you're trying to do is change your perception which then changes your feelings. So it's like changing the energy around how you feel about a system, whatever that is, whether it's the staffing system, whether it's how you get your meds. I mean, every nurse probably has been on a unit that is so toxic.
Oh,
and
yeah.
You can say toxic, and it's toxic because it's negative energy. It's nurses who are spewing negativity,
toxic sludge.
Yeah, it's so gross.
It's so gross.
And other nurses who may be negative, or it's like magnets. You're either going to go this way with the magnet, or you're going to repel the magnet. And unless you flip the magnet around, and you know what I mean? It's like,
you got to turn around.
Right. And you can't change the other people. You can't change the system. You're not going to change the doctor. You're not going to change the policies and procedures. You're not changing any of that. The only thing that you have control over is your view as you, and how you're viewing that. So changing your view into a more positive one, because if you want to talk about feelings, and more positive is more light, negative is heavy, the feelings and emotion, or energy and motion, it attracts whatever it's emitting. And so the more positive you are, and it can't be fake, like it can't, I don't really like that, like fake it till you make it. It's not, it is something, but that's not really what it is. You're practicing. You're practicing being positive. You're practicing trying to engage your mind to match what you're saying. So like the things about your father you were saying, and you could relate that to anything. And in any negative environment, if you're the positive, if you can't find one single thing, it would be, it's showing me what I don't like. It's showing me where I need to grow. He gave birth to me.
Yeah.
I am worthy, or the system. It is here to care for people. I am here because my skill, there's like, it's similar to kind of gratitude, and gratitude is just maybe an arm is a practice off of being more positive and finding the positive things rather than focusing on the negative things, because that will change what you are attracting. It just will.
So this is super interesting, because nurses, especially in the emergency room or in the ICU, because we're seeing the absolute worst side of people. Right. And we've talked about that before. So one of the things that I haven't connected it to is art. That there is this idea that, it's a well-established idea of mimesis, the mimetic function of art. And what art is it's a reflection of the society and the reality that surrounds you, the artist. And so what it's saying is, what the idea is that the artist is the mirror to the society that's around them, that they're just handing over the truth of the essence of what that society or culture is. And so if you take that idea and attach it to nurses, that almost like maybe not, maybe mimetic is not a perfect fit for this idea. It's some form of mimetic function and a reflective function. The thing that's taking nurses so far down is that they are reflecting. They are that mirror. So there's a mirror reflection that's happening in that setting where the nurses are taking on, and then how many memes are there out there for nurses about hating humanity?
Yes.
How many?
So many.
Hundreds, thousands.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying anything found. It's a fact of the reality that nurses, their experience turns them on the people that they're there to care for.
Yeah.
And so what I'm trying to hand over is the idea that this reflective function is turning into a mimetic function because the nurses are going down. Mm-hmm. This is the thing. Society is degrading or presenting itself in such base and broken terms to the nurses. It's presenting itself to nurses in that way. And then nurses are rejecting that, and then they're going down themselves.
Yeah.
That's the mimetic function. That's the point that I'm trying to say is that
the pull. It's a pull. It's a magnetic pull. And it's reflecting.
Well, like the artist is handing over the truth of the culture.
Yeah.
Like the essence.
Yeah.
And so if nurses are engaged in this reflective act, and that reflective act takes them down, mm-hmm. then that's a mimetic function. And mm-hmm. This is just thoughts. Some scientist out there that really knows what mimesis is will be like, right. He's out to lunch, whatever.
No, but
it's just an idea. It's just a
thought. It is.
This is the mental workshop right here.
Yeah, it is definitely a mental workshop. Yeah. Which we thoroughly enjoy.
Yeah.
The way that nurses feel is reflecting the degradation of healthcare right now. I mean,
of society.
How it all is going.
On both sides.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so something's got to change, or there will be no more nurses. There will be no more nurses to do what needs to be done. And a basic thing to try and make your life better in all areas, including nursing, the hospital, what you do, wherever you work, what nursing home, whatever it is to find the positive, find the good in whatever it is. Because in doing that, you will begin to see more good. It just is the way that it works.
I mean, it's like turning the light on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whether you are like creating a prayer, whether you start by just making a list of positive aspects, whether you do gratitude, if you want to write it down 5 gratitudes, just whatever it is, whatever comes to your mind that you're grateful for, whatever area, if you're pissy with your husband, write 5 things down why you love him. If you don't like the nurses that you work with, just write 5 things down that why you're grateful that you're there. Uh-huh. What do you find good about that person? It shifts it. It's just an energetic shift, and is one small thing that you can do to try to start to feel better. Mm-hmm. Is leaning more towards the light, leaning more towards being a reflection of positive light. Is it your responsibility? No, because you're not doing it for anyone else. You're not doing it to put it out there for other people to be like, oh God, she's so positive. No, it's completely selfish. It's for me only.
Yeah,
so whether you get any kind of benefit from it, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You will get benefit because I'm going to be better. I'm going to be a better nurse, a better person, and I'm going to be happier. And that just, it can't not make a difference in the world that you're living in.
Yeah.
And so don't think that you're doing it for someone else. You're doing it for you to feel better.
Yep.
And it goes, it can have heavy, it can make a big, big difference.
Mm-hmm.
Huge.
It changes everything.
Yes, it can. Yeah. So good. Positivity, number 1.
Well, I would put equanimity of self at number 1.
Yeah, we did say that.
If you can get yourself to the point where you see that you have both good and negative, then you can begin to focus on the positive and build out the best parts of you.
Yeah. And worth. that you are worth,
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we talk about nurses taking their lives, and I think the bottom line of that is that you have no worth. So why are you here?
Mm-hmm.
You're not worth, oh, my life is so terrible. I have too many, there's too much. I can't bear it. The bottom to that is you're not worth changing it to be better. What is the point? What is the point? What is my worth? Why bother? Knowing that we are all here on purpose, to find purpose, we all were drawn to go to nursing school. We've talked about that before. You can't just be a nurse. You can't just decide I'm going to not go work at Target. It's not like that.
Right.
It's different. It's too much. You can't stay in the program. You can't get a job as a nurse. You can't work as a nurse unless you are called from somewhere to do it.
Yeah.
And so that is a calling from somewhere greater than you. Whatever you believe in, it doesn't matter. We're not talking about religion. We're talking about a higher power, a higher self, a higher God, a higher source that calls you. So you're already worthy. You already have worth and a purpose, you know? So trying to see that. And how do you, I mean, you've been there. I've been very close to wanting to not be here anymore. I never tried. But I have felt the depth of depression, not feeling worthy to be here. Not whether it was more, sometimes it would be victimish, like, this is bullshit. Why? I don't even care about anything. To other things of like, what is the worth? What is my worth? Nothing. It means nothing. I mean nothing. And so just that you are here, able to feel those feelings, that is worthy. That is worth. And so if you're there, you already know, by feeling those feelings, that is worth. So there is a point. That is the point. I mean, how can you take yourself back to that depth? And could someone have told you something like that and it made a difference? Can that make a difference with us saying that to people?
I don't know. I mean, I had people that said things in subtle ways that, looking back, I can see that they were maybe trying to show me a death, but I don't think that any of them could understand the experience I was having.
No.
I don't think any of them, trigger warning. We need to put a trigger warning right here, because I'm going to say,
40.
I'm going to say some hard things. The first time that you do, did I say this? The first time you do chest compressions, you break the ribs and every time you compress that rib is rubbing on your hand. And I mean, it's just awful. And then after you've done that, then you're walking by the family. They don't know who you are. They don't know what you've been doing to their mima or papa or, baby. That's, they can't know. I mean, they could never guess what you just did. But I feel like when I walk by the family, they have to sense it on me. Mm-hmm. They have to, there's some, because of the posturing, the way that I present myself to them as a consolation, I'm sorry, I'm communicating that with my body, those experiences, the weight of that's what I'm describing there is the weight of information. I'm holding information about what just happened to your loved one, and I'm not telling you.
Yeah.
That's a heavy weight. Or the weight of knowledge of a diagnosis, the patient is going to die and they aren't ready for it.
Yeah.
And I have to carry that into the room. And I mean, I know that they know that I know.
Yeah.
I mean, or, that first time that you have a hemopneumothorax and on somebody that has an INR of,
Yeah.
a gazillion,
Yeah.
and you punch through, and you punch through that cavity wall, and you get sprayed from head to toe with blood. No one in my life could ever know that that's what I was carrying. So I don't think that anyone that didn't have the same severity of experience that I had could talk to me.
Yeah.
And that's part of why I'm willing to sit here and have this conversation. Not only we are healing ourselves by having this conversation, but I can imagine there's someone else in that same position that has no one in their life that could possibly understand what they're going through.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you ever reach out to other nurses?
No, I didn't even think about it. It didn't occur to me that that was until I hit absolute rock bottom. There was nothing. I had no idea. I mean, I know that I avoided people. I know that if I saw somebody that needed, you're walking through the grocery store and you see somebody that's sick, you just avoid them,
Yeah.
I was just carrying a lot.
Yeah.
We all are.
And I mean, it just occurred. You can't avoid those situations. Like we are not going to be able to keep people from feeling suicidal. By anything that we say, because sometimes that is where you have to go. That is what you have to do. It feels like for me, I want to save them. That's the nurse.
Yeah. I mean, that's our job.
It is. But sometimes that is where you have to get emotionally to realize, because you're not hearing it until you get there. We lost a friend, a mutual friend, and I don't know. Well, I do know. Neither one of us could save her. So knowing other nurses as a nurse who are so down, I want to give them my entire toolbox.
I mean, that's what we're doing. We can't, like we've talked about this, before we started it, we can't save anybody.
No.
We can just hand over our experience and the tools that we've acquired. I mean, that's it. That's all we can do. Yeah. They have to choose it for themselves. And when I think about our friend, and I hope that we get permission to talk about her story at some point, because that was one of the driving pieces of the conversation for us to do this. It was talking about her. One of the two similarities between my journey and her journey. Two similarities. One was Adderall. We were both prescribed Adderall, and we had nervous system problems. We didn't have attention problems. We had dysregulated nervous systems.
Yeah.
The second thing was severe isolation. And I know her progression because I did stay in touch with her. I did talk to her I can't say that it was really regular. She was irregular, and would not always pick up when I called. So she would have been the one that I reached out to the most. And I think that partly intuitively, I knew that she was not in a good place. And I knew that I was not in a good place. But we never really talked about that. We talked about, her farm and peacocks and, she had pet peacocks.
Yeah. But that the isolation.
She got isolated there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
you really did.
But that takes me back to the mimetic and reflective piece that I can't receive any more.
Yeah.
I can't receive anymore.
Yeah.
I can't take on any more.
Well, and that's how I felt with COVID. I mean, that was my downfall was around that time, and with everything that was going on with that, I isolated, and shelter in place, and get your, what did we call each other? We called it, like your pod, or your your small group, that you were with, family, whoever that was. Already it was isolated. I don't remember what
I didn't have that. I was all by myself.
Right. You were already alone. Yeah. But it was
COVID,
very isolating. And I think that's why, that's what set, if you think of nurses like this who are barely hanging on, the COVID just like everybody drops.
Yeah.
Because that's all it took was the isolation from everything. And now everything that I had dealt with up until that point was now, it felt so heavy. And it wasn't just COVID. It was the whole buildup, and then the isolation of COVID, and having to deal with everything just basically by myself, or within that small cluster. And even the healthcare system that I worked in, you were isolated. Like, we didn't go to meetings anymore. We stayed in our office. You didn't get close to anybody anymore. You had to stay back. You had to stay filtered. You had to stay behind. And it was very isolating. I was very isolated, even within my own home. I would come home and literally turn on the news to watch what in the hell was going on. Like, what is this about? What are people saying? Now you look at it, it's like, that's crazy, but it wasn't. That's what I had to know. And it, kind of very similar to it becomes so narrow, and you're just in this small line, and it just breaks you. And I just was like, you could die from isolation.
I think she did. I almost did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know. It's hard to whatever. And I've tried to think about, like, what got you out of that? What brought you back? It was
the crisis. I mean, it was hitting absolute rock bottom. That is the gift of rock bottom.
Yeah.
I asked for help. I didn't ask healthcare coworkers or former friends, but I did ask for help. But I just think nobody really understood what it was that I was dealing with.
Nor could they really.
They couldn't.
Yeah.
And, I was, that's like one of the things that, because I left the hospital and I was doing the woodworking, and there was an element of, I'm doing something productive. The woodworking thing, it was cathartic because on the one, it's when I say that the two are very intimately connected. On the one hand, in the hospital, I have a patient that's laying on the bed, and I'm standing there, working with my hands on this person that's trying to die. On the other side, in the wood shop, I've got the same setup. I've got a bench that is like a bed. The work is laying in front of me, and I'm using my hands to work on it, only it's dead, and I'm trying to give it a new life.
Yeah.
And so, and doing that was because, there's one of the things that I know about my own psychology from one of my experiences. I was, okay, this is a harsh way of saying it for anybody that's non-medical, but for an ICU nurse, I was gardening that day.
Yeah.
I had a pair of trached and pegged patients that were non-communicative, and I was.
Yeah. Well, they're like feeder growers. I mean, you just feed them, and you just wait for them to kind of get better, and that's just really all there is to it. Yeah.
I mean, those two, they weren't getting better. They were just
or waiting to die. But I mean,
yeah.
The hope is, but the reality is they're not. They're just waiting.
They might get over their immediate infection, but they're not getting better.
Right.
And so I can remember one very poignant day where it was just like, it was so clear, like I need to do something creative.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I found woodworking, it was going from holding on to something that's trying to go away to building something and being able to see it and touch it. And, it was very cathartic in that way. And so it became something I guess I obsessed over, or I was just, I transferred my passion and purpose into that, and the idea of becoming the best craftsman that I possibly could. And that was all that mattered. And I isolated myself so severely in that process that, and it was really like, I would say it was a cycle of inspiration and despair.
Yeah.
I would go from being so inspired and having this very clear vision of what I was supposed to do, and I would do it. But as soon as that was completed and finished, and I'm sitting there with this beautiful thing that I just made, I would just cry.
Yeah.
And I was in complete despair. And then I would find myself in bars and, getting ridiculously drunk. And, it was just such a cycle that, and some of the most beautiful work that I've done came out of that period. It's like, what the hell is that? What is that?
Well, it's emotion. It's emotion. It's energy. I mean, I think that, you saying that in my mind saw like the soul is crying out. And so those inspirational times, it's like, it's trying. It's like the lotus flower. I mean, there's so much, around, I don't know what the word is, but like a lotus flower grows out of mud, and it grows out of the worst environment, but it blooms and comes out of that. And it's always there. So no matter how much mud, no matter how much mess, no matter how much despair, how much doom, how much isolation we put ourselves in, there is always a lotus flower down there. Or you could say there is always a light in there. It is always in there. Again, going back to our worth, we are divine. We are here for something. It is always there. And it's not always easy to see that the way someone else sees that in you. But just to continue and to allow that process to happen, to allow what is becoming, to allow, which you did, you allowed that to work itself out. I allowed myself to go through the things that I had to go through and release things. And sometimes you do have to just get away, then every person's going to be different. I had to just get away. I had to get away from working in that kind of environment in order to heal myself.
Yeah.
Could I go back to working in that environment? I probably could if I needed to, because I am so different. But I find enjoyment in what I am doing now. And it's much more refreshing to me that I don't have to go back into an environment that was so toxic for me, and every single person is going to be different, and what they can tolerate, it's going to be different. It's thinking about, your mindset and where are you in how you're thinking about the world and your place in it.
So that actually takes me back to the circumstances of when I left the hospital, that the doctor abandoned me, the patient died, but that it's being, I think you were the one that told me that it was being used as a case study for what the nurse is supposed to do when a doctor abandons you at that hospital, which is like, that's what I was thinking about. The idea, like, I'm handing over this tool of choosing to find something positive in the situation, whatever situation you find yourself in, to choose to find the positive thing and connect yourself to the positive thing. If I had focused on the fact that you were there, that all of the other nurses that were on that night just happened to be the absolute best, the very top clinicians in our unit, if it had been like, if I could have focused on the fact that, you all really are the ones that saved my butt. I mean, there's no way that I could have done that without you. And so what I connected myself to was the fact that there was no way that I could have done that without you. And that if it had been any other night, it could have been an entirely different team.
Yeah.
And that team, I know, would not have been able to help me in the way that you guys helped me. And so that was what I connected myself to. And that was the thing that took me down. If I would have connected myself to the fact that you and all these other amazing clinicians were on that night, and there was like, if that guy was going to survive, we had the team to make it happen.
Yeah.
And we couldn't. But if I would have attached myself to that, my personal outcome would have been different.
Yeah.
But I put that death I internalized that so deeply, and I analyzed it from only the negative place, because it was a tremendously negative situation. There's no question about that. But if I could have connected to the positive, it could have changed the course of my life. And then maybe I wouldn't be sitting here today doing this work. Right. I mean, it happened. At the end of the day, you have to accept that it happened the way that it happened,
right?
And move forward. But that's the tool, is connecting to the positive, choosing to connect to the positive in others, in situations. That's the way out of the darkness.
Yeah. Yes. Caleb and I's toolboxes are huge, and we only talked really about one tool today, which I think is a big one. We could talk literally for like 10 more hours, but we're trying to keep the podcast at about an hour, because we know that longer is, sometimes harder to pay attention and that. So today, I think focusing on the positive, go back and listen again, write some things down, that.
I mean, we had it over more than one, I think. So equanimity of self.
Yes.
Being able to view yourself as a composite being, that you're made up of more than just one or two things, that you're both positive, and you have positive attributes, and you have negative attributes. You're good and you're bad. You're both. And always fluctuating in some gradient of those two. What else? Writing very specific prayers or statements of affirmation about perhaps someone or some situation that you're in. Writing writing a very specific prayer about the positive attributes of that person or situation that are good, and choosing to connect to the positive in the situation, not the negative. What else? I have my little list.
For gratitude, and then also learning to understand your worth and how worthy you are.
Yeah.
And divine.
Emotions eventually all pass. Another thing was to treat them as like waves.
Yes.
That you don't just stand there and let the wave hit you, it will take you down. That if your emotions rise up in you, you can dive under them and avoid the negative effects of them.
Yeah.
So we can put that list together, and we'll keep working on the list.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think, we'll try to, with each podcast, throw some out, end it a little way of like just some actionable steps that you can take, to start making a difference, in your life and with whatever you're dealing with, really.
Yeah.
So,
all right.
Do we have any little educational tidbits we want to talk about today?
Ooh, I'm dying to get into fecal transplants. I just want to talk about fecal transplants. Yeah. I've got a whole world to take you into. I've been meditating and thinking about this for years and years. Some incredible stuff. I think it's a whole podcast, though. I don't think
Probably. Yeah.
There's a lot of research that's coming out that says that our microbiome has a higher function in regulating emotions than our brains.
I actually believe that.
Yeah. How it connects to PTSD, the lining. I mean,
we're not talking about just with C. diff.
All of my ideas about the microbiome and its impact on humanity come from watching people go from truly being on their deathbed to giving them that transplant, and the next day showing up and seeing, these people that when their nutrients aren't being absorbed in their guts, we've seen it, their sockets sink in, their face just sinks in, and they just look like skeletons, and they look like death. Yeah. And you give them that fecal transplant and they're back. Like they look, their health, their face restores, and they look alive again, and they get up and they go home. It's like, that's a miracle.
It is a miracle.
Miracle.
Well, there's so much to it. So you're right. I mean, and you could take that a lot of ways with emotion and mental symptoms.
Yeah. Well, I've got a whole bunch of stuff that I've been processing.
Yeah. We'll have to do that.
Yeah.
Along with the vibrational bed. Yeah.
You mean
for frequencies? Another very interesting idea.
Yes. I was thinking you were talking about the Hillrom percussion module.
Module. Yeah. The modules. That's funny. Yeah. No, there's so many things to talk about. So, well, we should probably end this one.
Yeah.
We can start another one.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
All right.
All right. Cool.
See you next time.
See ya.
We hope you've enjoyed this week's episode.
Remember, the conversation doesn't end here.
Keep the dialogue going by connecting with us on social media posted in the links below, or by visiting our website.
Together, let's continue to redefine nursing and shape a brighter future for those we care for. Until next time, take care, stay curious, and keep nurturing those connections.
And don't forget to be kind to yourself.